I am so excited to introduce our guest speaker. She has been an influence in the community and I dare say around the world. Ms. Gail Warrior is the founder and owner and CEO of the largest and #1 female and minority-owned commercial construction company in the United States. Yes. In a male-dominated society, we have with us today someone that's going to help us to exchange and understand how do we really go to the next level. She is the founder and CEO of the Warrior Group. Without further ado, I can't say enough about her, but I want you to meet this local leader. I want you to meet this social impactor, this world changer, this dominating, this academic-minded power broker that's with us today. Please help me and welcome to the stage, Ms. Gail Warrior. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Wow. Good morning. That was a great introduction. I hope I don't disappoint you guys this morning for getting up on a Saturday, beautiful Saturday morning to come out and hear me. And if you'll bear with me, I've been getting over a cold, so I've got my water here, and I'm hoping and praying that I don't lose my voice on you this morning. But good morning again, and thank you for asking me to be here this morning. It's a wonderful privilege to be with you today and share with you some of my thoughts on how to succeed in business and how great leaders truly emerge. I'm honored to be with all of the bright minds in this room, and I love that you bring with you the spirit of entrepreneurship. I'm also thrilled to see opportunities like the XChange taking place where you get to mingle and meld with some of the most promising business leaders from a variety of disciplines. Today is a unique gathering where you get to explore ideas and generate creative concepts and cultivate business and personal relationships. And who knows, what starts here today may very well lead to the next great business venture down the road. I think that with this group, anything is possible. After all, you're here because you're entrepreneurs. And whether you work for yourself or whether you're working and climbing up that corporate ladder, being here today says that you want to take your careers and your personal accomplishments farther. You know, we all know that the past few years in business has been a struggle for businesses of every size. But it's overcoming those struggles and turning challenges into opportunities that defines great leaders. Adversity is so much a part of starting and growing a business that I'm starting to think it might be a key ingredient to long-term success, that it might be a key ingredient to real growth and achievement. Being a small business owner and an entrepreneur is a never-ending adventure. Routines don't exist, stress is imminent, and every day brings new challenges to overcome. Adaptability, flexibility, and staying level-headed while being open-minded are all qualities you can count on taking away from the experience. Quality, successful business leaders need to have in spades. But before I go too far into that, let me talk about just a little bit about what set entrepreneurs apart. So, how many of you, and I know we've got some Facebook questions coming, but how many of you have a Facebook or Twitter account by show of hands? Keep your hands up. How many of you have ever shopped at Walmart? Keep your hands up. How many of you have ever seen anything produced by Oprah Winfrey or Steven Spielberg? That should probably account for just about everybody in this room. And it also means that you have all contributed to turning someone's entrepreneurial idea into a success. After all, an entrepreneur is defined as a person who has possession of a new enterprise, a venture or idea, and is accountable for the inherent risk and the outcome. Entrepreneurs act as catalysts for the economic, social, and cultural change, and all the research on the topic indicates that entrepreneurs are highly creative individuals who imagine new solutions and then generate the opportunities to profit or be rewarded from them. I bet a lot of you probably have an iPhone or an iPod, right? Yeah, okay, well, don't take it out of your pocket. But just think that that device started from someone's idea to make something new, someone that people didn't even know that they wanted until it existed. You know, if someone had asked me back in the year 2000 if I would spend over $200 for a musical player, I would have laughed at them and said, no way, why would I do that when I could get a perfectly good Walkman for about 30 bucks, right? But the concept of an iPod, it wasn't just created, it was marketed in a way that made over 225 million people shell out that kind of money to buy one over the last 10 years. Steve Jobs, who's a co-founder of Apple, once said, a lot of times people don't know what they want until you show it to them. So coming up with an idea, that's the easy part. Transforming your idea into a reality is where your motivation and your skills and your know-how really come into play. So I'll give you a quick example. There is a woman by the name of Lauren Tom, and she's a single mother of 3. And she's out of New Orleans, and she wanted to open up a t-shirt shop. Now, New Orleans probably needs another t-shirt shop like it needed more problems to deal with at the time when she opened it. But like I said, it's not the idea that makes a great business. It's the hustle and the care and the creativity that you put into it. So Lauren, she took her $3,000 IRS refund check, and she gambled on the fact that women wanted to have sassy New Orleans flair type t-shirts made just for them. And it turns out that they did. And after months, after Twittering and Facebook posts, she had enough business to open up a renovated shotgun house to help revitalize New Orleans' retail district in the area. But then one day, she hit a snag. The NFL sent her a nasty gram, and she said that she couldn't sell the shirts that had that famous Saints phrase, "Who that?" on it. And remember what I said earlier about tough times, and she thought that it might really kill off interest in what was just getting good. But did she give in? No. The little t-shirt shop that could, she fought back in the court of public opinion, and she ended up making the NFL back down. And then her business boomed. Today, she's turned that $3,000 investment into a $250,000 business. She's opened up a second location. She employs 3 people, and she gives back to her community. So the moral of this story is to dream big, start small, keep your attitude in shape, your faith strong, and give back to the people who help you. To me, that's a great recipe for success, whether you're starting a t-shirt company or you're building a multi-million-dollar modular construction company. So speaking of dreaming big and starting small, all great business success starts with a vision. And the journey at Warrior Group, it actually began, as many things really do, because of an opportunity. We happened to be at the right place at the right time. And I was working as a senior accountant at the time at Mobil Oil. And one night, I went to business dinner with some friends, and they just happened to own a modular manufacturing company. And the company that they own specialized in temporary modular buildings. And during dinner, we identified an unmet need in the federal government space. And maybe it was because of the wine or all the brainstorming that was going on that night. The juices really started flowing, and the Warrior Group was born. But it was true in the beginning. We didn't have a business plan. We didn't have an office. And we didn't have any blueprints or a map of how this business was going to turn out. We didn't have a major workforce, and we definitely didn't have a major budget to speak of. But what we did have was a vision a vision for building quality modular buildings in the federal arena, and we wanted to be known as a trusted source with a superior product and a quality process with good, smart people. So in the beginning, we launched the business on a shoestring, and we called on friends and family to help build the company's infrastructure, and we borrowed office space and sometimes staff to grow our emerging business. And it was a very challenging start for us. But eventually, we expanded into our own office space, and we developed a reputation as a quality construction services company with a real expertise in the government sector. Today, Warrior Group has grown into the largest minority and women-led modular construction company in the country. We have over 30 employees. We've got offices in DeSoto, San Antonio, and Washington, D.C. Yeah, I've been working on Warrior Group now for about 14 years, and it hasn't always been easy, but it has always been a learning experience. So I'd like, if you would allow me, I'd like to take a few minutes to share with you a little bit about some of the lessons that I've learned along the way. So here we go. Lesson number 1, you have to play the hand that you're dealt. We all know that business runs in cycles, right? And sometimes you're up, and sometimes you're down. And business trends teach us about ups and downs all the time, that things happen, good and bad. But when bad things happen, you can't just crawl up in the corner with that, oh, woe is me type of attitude. That's not what entrepreneurs do. And I don't know about you, but sometimes between juggling a job and my community projects and my son's busy life, I rarely have time to wallow in, oh, why me? I don't have time to point fingers or assign blame. I have to step back, get a perspective on where I am and what's going on, and then figure out how I move forward from there. I've also learned that I always have to take the high road, and it won't make a situation any better, and to push the problem onto someone else. And that's not in the DNA of great leaders. Great leaders take the hand that they're dealt, and they make the best of whatever comes their way. You know, one of my favorite books is a short story called The Race, and I have it here if we have some time later, and I'd like to share it with you. But it's The Race by D. Groberg. And the power of this book is the realization that it doesn't always matter if you win the race or how you ran the race, but what matters is that you ran. And it tells us that it's always better to try in life than to never have tried at all. So many people give up on their dreams and never live up to their potential because they never tried at all. They never even tried to get in the race. The fact is that the biggest winners in business, and actually in life, became that way because they had some big losses along the way. And what made them winners is that they never gave up on themselves and they never gave up on their dreams. And when they got tired, and when they felt hopeless and incapable, they kept running their race. As far as my own personal story, it took a lot of sweat and tears to get to where I am today. And I've learned a lot. And one thing that I definitely know for sure is that I'm still a work in progress. But a big part of what got me to where I am today is my attitude and my faith, which leads me to lesson number 2. Lesson number 2, be happy in what you do. Your exuberance is contagious. So some of you may be like me, and you might read a lot of business books and magazines, and you may have noticed all this talk about passion and finding your passion and pursuing your passion. And if you do that, I think that's great. And if you're lucky enough to spend each day working in your passion, well, then you've probably hit the jackpot. But for some people, that's just a luxury. And whether you're an entrepreneur or whether you work for an organization, what I want you to do is to focus on being happy in life. Focus on all the great things that you have in front of you every day and work hard to make those things better. Because we spend so many hours in our workplace that if we're not happy, our work suffers. And our colleagues, well, they don't get the support that they need. And our customer service definitely isn't as great as it should be. So while my passion in life is health and fitness, I dearly love what I do at Warrior Group. When I see a finished project that's complete in a building that we've done and it's got the Warrior name on it, I'm extremely proud. So whether you're running a company or whether you're working your way up the corporate ladder or dreaming of starting your own business enterprise one day, you have to give it your all. You have to give it 110% each and every day, because real happiness comes from within you and not from the company that you work for. The real power is in the pride and happiness that you bring with you each and every day. Lesson number 3, count your blessings. But here's a key, but really count your blessings on those really, really tough days. So I've talked a little bit already about ups and downs, and how many of you, when you can't wait to get up in the morning, when things are running smoothly and going your way, you can't wait to get up and get your day started, right? But what about when you have issues? What about when you've got challenges and bumps in the road? And when the issues and the challenges get greater, it seems like those bumps in the road get even larger, right? But even on those toughest of days, you have to keep in mind that all of these issues will eventually pass, and that there's a reason why you're facing what you're facing, and that there's something that you're supposed to learn from the situation. So it's important that even on those really tough days when you just don't want to get up, that you still count the blessings that you do still have on hand. On any given day, you know, I might be in the air, or I might be on the road, or on the phone, or in a meeting, or having a great opportunity to talk to people like you this morning. And in between, I might be fixing lunches or dinner for my son, or helping him with homework, or creating as much quality time with him as I can. And then there's also the time that I have to do my daily exercise and my personal meditation. And even with all of that, oftentimes in the back of my mind is still the worry about the company and the challenges that we may face and the opportunities that we have to jump on. And sometimes it can feel very overwhelming. So what do? I literally remind myself that I'm blessed to be doing what I'm doing, and that I'm blessed to be the mother of an incredible and dynamic son. And I keep the faith that God will never put more on me than I can handle. And I keep going. And eventually, things, as they always do, they turn around. And with a lot of hard work and hustle and focus, you find that things start swinging your way again. So even in the toughest of times, make a list. Make a list of what is working. And my hunch is you probably still have more blessings and more great things than you can even count. Lesson number 4, be patient. You don't have to grow big overnight. Yeah, a really good friend of mine and one of my mentors, he said, make sure you tell business owners this very key lesson. Try not to get too big too quickly. And let me tell you, did we really make that mistake? When we started, we printed some baseball caps that said Think IPO on the side. And we were caught up at that time in the fever of the market, and we were convinced that we were going to get really big, really fast, and have an IPO and sell the company. Well, things didn't work out for that plan. So we had to take a step back, and we had to reevaluate, and then commit to building the business for the long haul. So instead of just going for any project that had big dollars attached to it, or small dollars for that matter sometimes, we had to learn to try not to be all things to all people. And as a leader, I had to be more strategic in the sizes and the types of projects that we decided to pursue. It's just kind of like the analogy of a cowboy galloping down a hill trying to get the very first cow that he could find and possibly losing it in the process. Instead, we learned to walk down the hill, take our time, round up all those cows, and we did that by being calm and methodical. At Warrior Group, it wasn't until we built a temporary barracks project at Fort Bliss in El Paso, Texas, that the light bulb finally came on for us. We had previously been bidding on any and everything that came our way, but not really winning enough and spinning our wheels in the process. When we got the contract at Fort Bliss, we realized that we had something special to offer with large-scale, permanent modular facilities. And it became our core offering. And it made Warrior Group into something altogether different. So don't run after everything that you can think of or everything that's even brought to you. Walk steadily, grow real relationships, put in time to grow real advocates in order to build long-term success. Lesson number 5, and this is one of my favorite ones. Make mistakes. Make plenty of mistakes, and make them quickly. Make them quickly. You know, I believe in learning from my mistakes, and I'm not so ignorant to think that we're probably not going to make a lot more along this journey. But mistakes, they're kind of like the stepping stones to success, right? A quick example that I'll give you in regards to Warrior Group happened in 2003, and it was actually probably our biggest mistake in our history so far. We were awarded a huge government contract in Chicago, and behind our backs we had a senior project manager that was taking kickbacks from a major subcontractor that we had on the job. And because of that, the project ended up being very behind schedule, and the subcontractor was doing very deficient work. In the end, we ended up losing over $1 million on our bottom line on that project and had to lay off over 50% of our staff. Every consultant and every business advisor that I talked to after that advised that I should just file for bankruptcy and just start over. But for me, that wasn't an option, so we didn't. What we did was we started back, and we started back slowly, and we built ourselves up, and we became smarter about the partnerships that we made, and we became smarter about the employees that we brought on board. And now in that situation, could I have prevented it? Maybe. We'll never know at this point. But the most important thing is that I learned from it, and we learned from it as an organization, and we grew from it. So if I've learned anything in the past 14 years, it's to embrace my failures. As Oscar Wilde once said, experience is simply the name that we give our mistakes. And because of the mistakes and the missteps that happened at Warrior, it helped us to find the business that we should truly be in today. Lesson number 6, at the end of the day, your reputation is all that you really have. Your reputation is your word, right? It's your bond. And you can't cut corners. You have to do everything above board. You know, my mom had a saying, and if any of you, if your mom had the same saying, you could probably help me finish the second part. And she used to say, whatever is done in the dark will always, always come to the light. And, you know, it may not be tomorrow, and it may not even be next month, and it may not even be next year. But everything always happens to come around, right? I truly, truly believe that. But when you do things with high integrity, when you're setting yourself up for long-term happiness and for growth, those things don't happen. We had a project once where the roofs, we did a child daycare center, and the roofs were leaking. And it wasn't our fault, and it wasn't our responsibility to repair it, and it definitely wasn't in our budget to fix the problem. But we went ahead and we did it, and we wanted to make sure that everything was perfect. Why? Because it had the Warrior name attached to it. And at Warrior, we do things with pride. And it's part of the Warrior Creed that we created a few years ago. And we put it together, and we base all of our decisions based on the Warrior Creed. And the Creed talks about building trust. It's at the top, build trust. And be accountable, succeeding together, making a difference, and leading the way. And you can't lead the way or make a difference if you're cutting corners, right? So when you're out there, make sure that you lead the way with high integrity. Lesson number 7, last lesson. Take responsibility. I want to talk to you a little bit about responsibility because as entrepreneurs, you are in a very powerful position. You have the power, the great power, to change the world through your vision, through your passion, and your dedication. But with this power comes a great responsibility. And using one of the names of one of my favorite movies, I believe that we all have a duty to pay it forward. Sometimes we don't realize that our success is tied to other people's success, and we must look for ways to build the strength of others in our business network and in our communities to make sure that we all advance together. And just 4 years ago, in 2007, in memory of my mom and dad, I established the Heart of a Warrior Charitable Foundation, and it creates and supports educational programs and resources for underserved children in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. We currently have over 250 children, anywhere from age 8 to 14, enrolled every summer in our Young Warriors Summer Learning Program. And our hope is that the opportunities and the skills that they may learn from our program will help them grow as students, but more importantly, help them grow as people. Because after all, someday, those kids will probably be sitting where you are today. So take the opportunity to give back. And you may not feel that what you're doing matters, but believe me, it does. Everything that you do to impact the life of someone else in a positive way makes a difference. And the more we work together to support each other as business people, as friends, and as individuals, I know that we will all make a difference in this world. So those are some of the lessons that I've learned. Things that have occurred to me and things that I try to still reflect on as often as I can. And I know it's easy to get caught up in the day-to-day workplace and everything that you have going on. So it's important to every now and then take a step back and remind yourself that the bigger picture is what's key. Finally, I want to remind you of all of the gifts and opportunities that you have before you. You are a talented, fortunate, bold, and blessed, creative group of business people that have a very bright future ahead of you. And you have to believe that the best things in life have yet to come. And the best things that you're going to do are yet to come. And you have to have the faith that the challenges, they won't last forever. And that the true measure of a great business person, the true measure of a great artist or humanitarian or even an athlete is not the gifts that they're bestowed with, but what's important is what they do with them. So finally, I'll leave you with this challenge. What can you do today that will make a difference for someone else tomorrow? How are you going to better yourself in the days ahead so that you bring more happiness to your world? What are you going to risk that pushes your own personal boundaries? I wish all of you many successes in your journeys ahead, and I know I will look forward to all of the wonderful and great things that you have yet to do that are to come. Thank you.
We're going to talk real briefly about some of the things that we want to make sure that we impart to you today as exchangers. So when you came to this place of giving, because I'm so excited, I'm on the edge of my seat, I really, really want to know. You talked a lot about the attributes and the characteristics of leaders and the power of not giving up. When you got to that point where you wanted to quit, you're in a male-dominated industry, you face some challenges that we have probably only imagined. How did you not just say, okay, maybe I'm approaching this the wrong way, or maybe this is not for me?
You know, for me, and it was probably the way that I was raised, because my parents always used to tell me, your last name is Warrior, and it's Warrior for a reason. And giving up and failing is just not an option. It's just not what we do. But I recognize that some people get to that point where they want to give up. or they don't think that they can go on. And most of the time, we give ourselves so much negative self-talk, and we tell ourselves so many negative stories. And then it can be reinforced by the negative things that we hear from the outside world. So my suggestion would be, first of all, get rid of all that external negative self-talk, because sometimes we give ourselves so much of it ourselves that we don't need it from the outside world. But to me, you have to really dig deep within yourself and really find out what it is that you're made of, and have that quiet time where you can meditate or pray or whatever it is that you need to do. For me, I journal a lot. And sometimes I may wake up in the middle of the night and have something on my mind and I start journaling. But at the end of the day, you still have to know that everything, I used to have a phrase that I love to say, that most things that we face in life is a small thing in a world so big. And when you look at everything that's going on in the world, some of the day-to-day challenges that we have to face, you know, it's like, oh, I can do that. You know, that's nothing compared to what's going on in some of our other countries or even some of our other cities here in the U.S.
In the scheme of things.
Mm-hmm.
You talked a lot about making mistakes and making them early. And most leaders feel like mistakes are a sign of failure. Mm-hmm. What were some of your defining moments?
You know, I think, you know, really great leaders realize that mistakes are just a part of the process, you know, and not necessarily defines who they are. And you've got some Fortune 500 companies out there that wouldn't be there until they had started and stopped other companies before they got to where they are. For me, as far as some of, I'm still making mistakes every day, and I'm a work in progress, and so I just take everything, not necessarily, sometimes I don't take it with a grain of salt. I think if you ask some of my staff, when we make mistakes, by the time I finish yelling and screaming, then I take it with a grain of salt. But you know, again, you can't stress the small things in life. And the defining moment for me, I don't know if we've experienced that yet. You know, the major loss that we had back in 2003 really made me take a hard look on how we structured the company and the direction that we were going to take the company. And it was something that I learned from. But as far as the big what's Oprah saying? The big aha moment. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if we've had that yet.
Wow. Let me ask you this. What does it feel like to make $120 million in 1 year? I just want to know.
You know, it's interesting because we used to have this big thing in my office that we couldn't wait until we got to 50 million. That was like the big number for us. And then we got to 50 million, but then we had the staff to support it, and we were like, you know what? Okay, now we got to get to 100 million, you know. And then we got to 100 million, and we're like, yeah, and you always feel like you're raising the bar, you know, to a higher level. One, I can tell you that we've been extremely blessed to have the type of success that we have. And I always tell people that it's not because of me just being the CEO, it's because of all the 30-plus people that I have working at the organization. You cannot even think or begin to think that you're going to grow a successful business of any kind and be able to do it by yourself. It's not going to happen.
Not possible. Wow. So what advice would you give, or piece of wisdom, because you've given us so much already. Mm-hmm. I've just eaten it up, and we've got some practical tools. Mm-hmm. But we've got some exchangers today that are going to walk out that door. What would you mandate that they just keep at the forefront of their minds when they leave this process today?
You know, I would probably tell you, this has become my motto for 2011, and probably will be from here on out. And it was from a movie, and I can't remember the name of this movie. I'm bad at names. But the actress was Jennifer Aniston. And in the movie, she was talking to a guy at the table, and something was happening in her life. And she said to him, she said, you know what? Life is in session. And what she meant by that, and what I took from that, is life is in session each and every day. And there are no timeouts. You know, you can't, you know, sometimes we put our kids in timeout and say, go into timeout. But in the game of life, there are no timeouts. There are no redos. You can't get to the end of the day and say, you know what? I didn't like how this day went. I'm going to wake up and start over, because it's a new day. You know, you can't start it over. And so every day when you wake up, you have to remember life is in session. So even if you decide to sit in that corner and have that, oh, woe is me, remember life is still going on around you, that life doesn't stop, and that it's always in session. So if there's anything that you take away today, just remember that life is always in session, and live it to its fullest.
Each and every day. Wow, thank you so much. We're going to go and take an audience question. What questions do we have for the presenter? I know we've got some that have been prepared, and so let me take one of those real quickly.
Of your business, the challenges that you did face, were there any moments that said, or that made you cry? That, you know, sometimes you go through those challenges starting up and trying to figure out what is your next step, and you wrote your plan, and the plan fell apart, you start crying, or is there an inner passion that says, I got to move forward, or was it something externally that took place?
You know, a couple of things. I can tell you that incident in 2003 definitely made me cry. You know, anytime you lose, you know, because we were a very young, small business at that time. And most small businesses can't, you know, lose that type of cash. I mean, that was straight cash that we lost to our bottom line. So there wasn't just one night of crying. There was a lot of tears that night. And then any time that, you know, you build up an organization with very good people, and you have to then go to them and tell them you have to lay them off and they have to leave. A really good friend told me once that any time that you get to the point where, you know, you don't feel bad about laying someone off or telling someone that they're terminated, you have to then question your own integrity. And when we had to lay off over 50% of our staff, that hurt. It hurt a lot. And there were plenty of nights where I cried. And when advisors came to me and said, you know, just file bankruptcy and start over, there were nights where I cried about that too. And it's interesting because we had been leasing our office space for a number of years, and we had just moved into our own office space that year. And so here someone was telling me, we have a building that's like 10,000 square feet. And so here someone was telling me that I needed to just shut it all down and start over. And it just wasn't that simple. So I had a lot of tears. But again, you know, when I do that, and we all, and I don't want to sound like you should never have your own personal pity party. Because we all need to have those personal pity parties sometimes. But the important thing is you don't stay there, you know, and that you create a plan and you say, okay, this is the hand that I'm dealt. You know, what am I going to do to get out of this situation? And how am I going to move forward from here?
Thank you for your question. We have a text question. Let's take one. Do you have one for us, Janet?
You have a text question. What has been the most challenging aspect of being in a male-dominated industry?
You know, the most challenging aspect is probably being a female in a male-dominated. You can imagine when I go into certain meetings, and I remember we had done a project, our first major project at Fort Bliss, and we had an update meeting, and so I flew down with some of my leadership team, and we walk in, we did this project with Hensel Phelps, and so we walk in, and around the whole table was nothing but men, and then there's me. And then a lot of the people at Hensel Phelps didn't know that I was the CEO of Warrior Group, and so when I introduced myself, it's like, hi, I'm Gail Warrior Group, and like, you're the Warrior of Warrior Group? I'm like, yeah, I am. And for some, because you can imagine, the construction industry is and always will be a male-dominated industry. But For me, what I don't do is let people or things or situations like that intimidate me. Now, the other people may feel intimidated, but they've got to deal with that. You don't take that on, as your own burden. So probably the biggest challenge is just the questions that I get. I remember when we got our first, we got some funding from an organization called Texas Women's Venture Fund, and one of the partners wanted to interview the leadership team. And so it was me and 3 other people on my leadership team, all that were men. And so then the one guy was asking us all questions. And so he turns to me and he says, Gail, do you run the day-to-day operations at Warrior Group? And so I said, well, I'll tell you what. Why don't we let the 3 guys, they can leave the room, and any more questions that you have, then you can just ask them to me directly. And then I'll let you be the judge of that. And so he said, no, that's okay, we don't have to do that. But being a female in a male-dominated industry, whether it's construction or any other industry, you will have times where people try to question your talents and your skills and your ability. To that I say, just be strong and know who you are and whose you are, and that you are capable of anything, and don't let anyone ever tell you what you can't do or what you're incapable of. And then with that, there's nothing that you can't do or any challenge that you can't overcome.
Thank you. Let's take another question from the audience. I think we've got a couple ready to go. Right in the back there.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Gail, Miss Warrior. How did you know when it was time to expand your business?
Warrior Group kind of, I don't know if I knew if it just kind of happened before I was really ready for it to happen. We've evolved quite a bit. We actually started, we weren't really a true construction services company. We were more or less in the very early years a sales and marketing company, if you will. We were the middle people between the manufacturer. We would find the projects, and we had the relationship with the manufacturer that would build them, and then we also had a relationship with the general contractor that would manage the projects on site. From that, then we decided, and our risk was very low, but because our risk was low, our margins were low as well. And then we decided, we want to be in the risk business. We want some more of this ourselves. So we became a general contractor, or a dealer, if you will, of modular buildings. And then we started doing everything, single-wise, double-wise, construction trailers, portable buildings for schools. I mean, anything and everyone, if they needed a building, oh yeah, we can do that. And then we decided the market for that type of business, it was so strong. And everybody was doing that, and the risk actually was much greater. And then we decided, okay, what is it that we can do that nobody else is doing right now? And at that time, back in about early 2003, we were actually talking to the Army Corps of Engineers and realized that no one was really doing modular construction on a large-scale basis with the federal government. And we decided that we could be that company. And so we kind of have evolved over time as we've grown. I don't know, hopefully that answers your question.
Yes, one city or one state and move to other states, because I'm familiar with, getting federal government money. So
right.
What I'm saying is, you start in one state, one city, and then you have to.
Well,
does it work like that?
With our business development team, they look for projects all over the U.S. So it's not necessarily, we didn't focus or just concentrate in one city or one state. We just looked at where all the opportunities were for modular buildings. I can tell you that we're doing a lot more projects now, ground up construction, what's called conventional construction. And from that strategy, we're focusing more in the DFW area or the Southwest region versus trying to have that type of market on a national basis because it takes a lot more infrastructure and a lot more people that we're really ready to put towards it right now.
Thanks for your question. We've got one coming in from our Facebook audience.
Ms. Warrior, talk about how you identified great staff without an agenda to help you bounce back from your setback.
You know, we started, that's a good question. We started doing what's called scenario interviews because you know, a lot of times when you do just a regular interview and you ask certain questions, you may connect with someone's personality, but then you don't really get into, can they really do this job? And so what we've changed over is to do scenario interviews. So we create a scenario and we do round robin interviews. So we have, if someone comes in and interviews for the organization, they don't just interview with one person, but it's pretty much an all day or half day event. And we're taking them through several different interviews with various levels of people within the organization. And we each have a different scenario that we ask that person. And so by the time that person leaves, and then we all get together and we compare notes, we've been pretty much spot on about making sure that we've got the right person on board that comes in. And if nothing else, you know, if they get through the interview process alone, because it's pretty strenuous, you know, we've had some people that have said, you know what, I don't want to do that. And that's okay. And one of the things that is very important for us is that we find people that embody the warrior creed that I mentioned earlier. Because that's the type of culture and the type of people that we want within the organization. And so if those things in regards to building trust and being accountable and making a difference and leading the way, if that's not something that's important for you, then our organization would not be the right organization for that person.
Ms. Warrior, we'd like to thank you so much for our time
me.
with you today. We'd like to thank you for just the impartation, the wisdom, the lessons learned that are so invaluable, because we want to make sure that we are doers. We're not just talking about it, but we're being about it. So help me to thank her for her time with us today and for sharing with us today.
Ms. Warrior, on behalf of the Potter's House Church and Bishop and First Lady Jace, we would like to present a special gift to you.
Thank you.
And we'd just like to say thank you again for pouring into our leaders and spending the time with us. And we'll be sharing a lot more. We'll have some video where you can go online and see some more. And you'll be staying here with us for a little bit, right?
Yeah, I will.
Okay, great. And maybe we can ask a few more questions afterwards, okay?
All right.
Let's give her another round of applause. Thank you very much.